If it hadn't been for one, but no one would have even noticed them enter. An old man in a shabby coat and a woman with kind, tired eyes appeared in the car dealership so quietly that they were at first mistaken for another, just looking. Until one noticed them looking. The room was too quiet for a place built on horsepower. Engines slept under polished hoods, the kind of sleep that whispered of money, status, and asphalt glory. Salesmen stood in small clusters, suits too sharp, smiles too rehearsed, waiting for the kind of customer that made quotas and bought luxury with a flick of a card. They didn't expect them. The man's steps were deliberate, as if every tile of the marble floor might vanish beneath him. His coat hung heavy, a relic from another era. The woman stayed close, her scarf pulled tight as though to shield her from the chill of judgment that pulsed in the air. No one greeted them. No one asked, "May I help you?" No one needed to, at least not in their minds. They didn't belong here. Or so it seemed. Until the man walked straight past the flashy sedans, ignored the aggressive sports cars, and came to a halt in front of it, the crown jewel of the showroom. A limited edition supercar, one of only 12 in the world. Its curves were art, its engine specs borderline obscene. A monument to wealth and excess. He reached out, fingers hovering a breath above the paint. Then, barely audible, he spoke. "They got the intake wrong." The woman gave a soft, almost invisible smile. "And the balance. Look how it leans forward, like it's always trying to catch up with itself." Across the room, Sasha, the intern, froze mid-sip of his coffee. He'd heard it. Not the words exactly, but the tone. Not awe. Not curiosity. Something else. Authority. He hesitated, then walked over, ignoring the half-scowl from a senior salesman nearby. "Sorry, did you say something about the intake?" he asked, almost apologetically. The man looked at him. Just one look. But it felt like Sasha had just interrupted a meeting with someone who had been here before, even if he never had. "Yes," the man replied simply. "It's inefficient. Beautiful, but foolish." The salesman behind Sasha rolled his eyes. "And you would know that how?" he muttered under his breath, not quietly enough. The man didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the woman. "Remember the prototype we built in '87? The double-valve system with the offset chamber?" She nodded. "They called it impossible. Until 3 years later when Stuttgart discovered it." Sasha blinked. This wasn't just some old couple out of place. This was something else. Something he couldn't name yet. But he'd remember this moment for the rest of his life. That night, Sasha couldn't sleep. He kept replaying their words in his mind. The way the old man spoke, not as someone impressed by machines, but as someone intimately familiar with them. As if every gear, every torque curve, every design choice had passed through his own hands. He tried searching online. Double-valve offset chamber 1987. Results came up, sure. Mostly German patents. A few obscure references to Soviet prototypes. One article mentioned a missing engine design that was never publicly shown. Classified? Suppressed? Lost? Sasha's thoughts raced. The next morning, he got to the dealership early. Earlier than anyone else. And he waited. He wasn't sure what he was waiting for. But when the door opened at 10:02 a.m., and the same couple walked in, only this time, they weren't walking. They were driving. 2 cars. Silent. Sleek. Unlike anything Sasha had ever seen. Not branded. No logos. Just design. Aerodynamic lines that felt organic, matte surfaces that seemed to absorb light, and a hum, low, rich, like thunder held in a glass jar. The showroom staff froze. One of the senior managers dropped his phone. Sasha stepped forward involuntarily. The woman stepped out first, moving like someone far younger than she looked. Her coat was gone. She wore a leather jacket, worn but real. Not bought. Earned. The old man followed, a small smile on his face as he watched the jaws drop. "Thought we'd bring something for the test drive," he said calmly. No one responded. One of the executives finally found his voice. Where did you get these cars?" The old man shrugged. "We built them." A pause. "Built them where?" the exec demanded. The woman tilted her head. "In a garage. Just like the first time. Only now we had fewer people telling us what we couldn't do." Sasha couldn't help himself. "You designed these?" he asked, stepping closer. "From scratch?" The old man looked at him again, the same way as before. Like he was measuring something inside Sasha. Like he knew a question was forming that Sasha didn't know how to ask. "Yes," he said. "And they're not prototypes." He tossed something into Sasha's hands. A key fob. Branded with nothing. Smooth. Cold. Heavy. Real. "Want to see what the future feels like?" Sasha nodded. The old man smiled wider. "Then get in." The door closed with a sound unlike any Sasha had heard before, not a mechanical click, but more like a seal. As if the car wasn't just a vehicle, but a vault. Inside, the cockpit was minimalistic, almost Spartan. No touchscreen screaming for attention. No chrome. No stitched logos. Just smooth surfaces, subtle curves, and a sense of calm. Everything seemed placed, not designed, as if it had grown there, like a shell around a creature. The old man sat in the passenger seat, watching. "Start it," he said. Sasha looked around. No ignition. No button. No key slot. He instinctively tapped the fob against the center console. A soft vibration ran through the chassis. Then silence. But the silence meant something now. The kind of silence that holds a storm behind it. Sasha placed his hands on the wheel. It was warm. Alive. He didn't know how fast they were going until the city disappeared behind them. The car didn't accelerate. It slipped through air, gliding like a memory. Every motion responded to thought faster than Sasha could react. It was like the car understood. "You feel it?" the old man asked. Sasha nodded, stunned. Most people think speed is numbers. Horsepower. Torque. 0 to 60. But that's just noise. Real engineering, true engineering, is silence at 300 kilometers per hour. They drove. Through city edges, down forgotten industrial lanes. The buildings began to look familiar. Sasha realized they were near the old district. Warehouses. Abandoned factories. Places swallowed by time and bureaucracy. One of the gates ahead opened automatically. Beyond it, an airstrip. And something else. A building with no name. No signs. Just walls scarred by history and years of silence. The car stopped by itself. The old man turned to Sasha. "You want to know who we are," he said, not asking, just knowing. "Come inside." Inside the building, the air smelled of metal, oil, and memory. Tools hung on the walls with obsessive order. Blueprints covered entire panels, some hand-drawn, others digital projections floating mid-air from old Soviet equipment refitted with modern tech. Sasha felt like he'd stepped into a ghost's lab. Only the ghost was standing right in front of him. "What's this place?" he asked. The woman smiled. "It was supposed to be erased. And now," the man added, "it's where the future begins." Sasha stared at a chassis in the corner. Sleek. Raw. Unlike anything he'd seen, even beyond the car he just drove. "Are you a company?" he asked. The man laughed. No. We're a memory. And soon, a legend. Sasha turned slowly, realizing something terrifying and exhilarating at once. They weren't here to impress anyone. They were here to remind the world. Sasha stood frozen, staring at the walls covered in history no one had told him about. Handwritten schematics on yellowed paper. Notes in a Cyrillic script, tight and rushed. Equations that looked more like poetry than math. Beside them, newspaper clippings, blurred headlines half-torn, photographs of men in lab coats, standing proudly beside shapes under tarps. All of it dated before 1991. All of it unsearchable. These are Soviet designs? Sasha asked, almost whispering, afraid his voice might crack the silence. No, the old man said. These are ours. The state just stamped their name on it. Then buried it when it got too good. The woman stepped forward, pulling down a roll of blueprints and unrolling it across a metal table. This was our last engine before they shut us down, she said. We called it 9. 9 cylinders, triple intake phase, 0 lag. No computers. Just physics, and soul. Sasha looked at the label in the corner. The signature had been blacked out with thick pen. Why erase the names, he asked. Because names are dangerous, the old man replied. They carry memory. And memory scares people who build empires on forgetting. Sasha's breath caught in his throat. He was starting to see the picture. These weren't just old engineers tinkering with nostalgia. These were pioneers whose work had been silenced, not for failure, but for being too far ahead. But if this tech is real, Sasha said, why come back now? After all these years? The old man exchanged a look with the woman. A shared decision passed between them. Then he walked over to a desk and opened a drawer. Inside, a thick folder stamped with faded red ink. A blurry photo leaked online, grainy, but electric. 2 unidentified vehicles parked outside the showroom. The license plates were blank. The designs? Unmatched. A few car bloggers caught it. A Reddit thread lit up. Speculations flared. Prototype. Concept leak. Someone's playing with AI renders. What are these cars? But at the dealership, the air wasn't full of whispers. It was full of tension. Because they were back. The old man and the woman, again, uninvited, unannounced, but this time, not ignored. Pavel, the manager, was waiting at the entrance, arms crossed. You can't just walk in here like you own the place, he snapped. We don't, the woman said, calmly. We walked in because we don't. Then what do you want? The old man smiled, almost kindly. A conversation. And a demonstration. Before Pavel could protest, Sasha stepped in. They deserve 5 minutes, he said. At the very least. Pavel hesitated. The rest of the staff watched, unsure which way this was about to tilt. But Sasha's voice didn't shake, and that surprised even him. Finally, Pavel gave a stiff nod. 5. In the center of the showroom, the cars stood like silent rebels. People began gathering, some customers, a few staff, 1 or 2 journalists who had gotten word. The old man stepped forward. You've been sold a story, he said to the room. That speed is a number. That performance is a product. That you can't dream without a badge on your hood. But before there were brands, there were builders. And before there were markets, there were ideas. He reached into his coat and pulled out a simple black device. A projector. Clicked it once. The lights dimmed. On the wall behind him, proof. Photos. Dates. Schematics. Government stamps. A timeline of stolen brilliance. One slide after another. Side by side, their original designs, and the modern cars built on their bones. Not copies. Replicas. Gasps filled the room. Someone whispered, "That's the new Varga V12. And that's the Sphinxy cruise system." But that was theirs. Pavel's face drained of color. "You're accusing international manufacturers of theft," he snapped. "This is insane." "No," the woman said. "We're just reminding people where innovation comes from. You think history only goes in one direction. But the road loops." Sasha was frozen. But inside, a part of him was screaming. Not with fear. With recognition. Because deep down, he felt it, these two weren't fringe. They weren't crazy. They were the origin story the world never got to hear. Then the projector shut off. And the silence returned. The old man turned to Pavel. "Thank you for your 5 minutes," he said. And then, calmly, the two turned and walked out, leaving behind a stunned crowd, and a room now full of questions no one could unask. But outside, someone else had been watching from a tinted car across the street. A figure in a suit, tapping on a phone. "Yeah. We found them," he said into the receiver. "They're back." That night, the air around the old warehouse felt heavier. Inside, the lights buzzed with quiet defiance. The workshop was alive, schematics updated, code lines running, test sequences humming in low-frequency pulses. The woman was at the engine bench, calibrating something delicate by hand. The old man stood by the window, watching. "You know they'll come now," she said, not looking up. "They were always going to," he replied. Outside, headlights flashed once, then twice. Sasha arrived. This time, without hesitation. "I want in," he said the moment he stepped through the door. "Whatever this is, you're building something real, and I want to be part of it." The woman studied him. Not with suspicion, just care. "You're still young enough to turn back," she said softly. "You still believe the world is fair if you work hard." "I believed that yesterday," Sasha answered. "Not anymore." The old man smiled. "Then welcome to the shadows." Before anyone could say more, there was a knock. 3 firm raps. Not rushed. Not angry. Official. The 3 exchanged a glance. The woman clicked a switch, blueprints vanished into walls, data panels darkened, the room folded into simplicity. In under 5 seconds, the lab looked like a quiet, dusty garage. The old man opened the door. 2 men stood outside. Both in dark suits. Clean cut. Too clean. One smiled without warmth. "Mr. Malenkov," he said. The name hadn't been spoken aloud in decades. "We'd like to speak with you. Privately." The woman stepped forward. "If this is about the presentation." "It's not about what you showed," the agent said. "It's about what you haven't yet." He handed over a folder. Thin. Clean. Marked with no insignia. "Certain organizations have become aware that you may be in possession of technologies considered sensitive." The old man raised an eyebrow. "You mean ours?" "We're not here to argue ownership," the other man said. "We're here to suggest containment." There was silence. Not the silence of confusion. The silence of choosing between war and peace. The old man closed the folder without opening it. "We were silenced once," he said. "We spent 30 years in the dark. But the difference is, this time, we built our own light." "You're making this harder than it has to be," the agent replied. "Good," the woman said. "Hard is where we do our best work." The agents left with tight jaws. As their car disappeared into the night, Sasha turned to the old man. "What happens now?" The answer came from the woman this time. "Now we stop being quiet. Now we race." They chose the place deliberately. A forgotten racetrack outside the city, once the pride of Soviet engineering trials, now overgrown, rusted, abandoned to time. But it still had teeth. Concrete curves weathered but loyal. Old timing towers still standing like ghosts. The kind of place where history didn't whisper, it roared. They came before dawn. Sasha helped unload the two machines. The ones no one could identify. The ones the world still believed were a myth. Their bodies shimmered in the blue light of morning, neither matte nor glossy, but somewhere in between, like polished obsidian. The old man placed his hand on the hood of the lead car. "It remembers," he said. Sasha looked at him. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer. Not directly. By midday, the word had spread. Not officially. But the right whispers reached the right people. And the wrong ones, too. Journalists. Engineers. Racing fanatics. Government observers. Executives from the same corporations whose patents were built on stolen ghosts. They arrived in sleek black cars and helicopters, dressed like boardrooms, looking confused but curious. On the other side, no banners. No sponsors. Just a man, a woman, and two machines that had no name. Pavel from the dealership was there too. He didn't speak. He just watched. The woman stepped forward and addressed the small crowd. "We were erased," she said. "So today, we leave a mark." The challenge was simple, one lap. No tricks. No marketing. Reality versus reputation. The opposing team, pressured by pride, offered their latest hypercar. Fresh from European luxury labs. A beast on paper. Built by wind tunnels and algorithms. Sasha stood by as the old man slid into the driver's seat of their car. No ceremony. No helmet. Just purpose. The race began. It wasn't even close. The hypercar launched with a roar engineered for sound. But the ghost machine moved like silence sharpened. It didn't race the air. It rewrote it. Every turn was surgical. Every acceleration was a whisper of defiance. It crossed the finish line 8 full seconds ahead. People didn't clap. They stared. Like they'd seen something impossible. The old man stepped out, untouched by time or speed. The agent from the other night was there. He didn't speak, but this time, he wasn't smiling. He turned and walked away, phone already at his ear. Later, Sasha found the woman alone near the timing tower. "You just declared war," he said. She looked at him and nodded. "No. We just reminded them what truth sounds like when it runs at full speed." He hesitated. "What happens next?" The old man's voice came from behind. "Now the world decides, bury us again, or follow." And far behind them, across the crumbling fences of the old track, black SUVs were gathering. But this time, they weren't here to talk. They didn't sleep that night. None of them. The warehouse was lit like a war room. Monitors blinked. Schematics scrolled. A map of the city glowed on the wall, pinned with a single red dot, the International Auto Tech Expo, tomorrow's headline event, hosted by the very corporations that had stolen their work. The woman stood at the center of it all, arms folded. Focused. Calm. The old man approached her, holding a drive. "This is the full archive," he said. "Designs, videos, timestamps. Unedited. Unbranded." She took it and looked at Sasha. "You ready to drive?" He blinked. "Me?" The old man nodded. Every generation has a moment where it decides whether to keep serving silence, or speak, even if your voice shakes. The expo was a shrine to modern engineering. Giant screens. Global press. Celebrities. Speeches dripping with PR polish. Then the silence broke, not with a crash, but with a sound no one could identify. A car. No, two. Uninvited. Unpermitted. They drove straight onto the expo floor. Security rushed forward, but stopped. Because the crowd wasn't moving away. They were moving closer. Phones came out. Cameras. The woman stepped out of the first car, holding up the drive. She looked directly at the lead panel of executives. "You took our work," she said into the mic, then erased our names. She plugged the drive into the expo's main terminal. The screens changed. Footage appeared. Old labs. Tests. Voice recordings. Early builds. Faded photographs. Pages of notebooks. And then, slide by slide, every patent filed in the last 10 years. Overlapping perfectly with their blueprints from the 80s. One of the executives lunged for the cable. Too late. The feed had already gone live. Mirrored to news networks. Uploaded. Immutable. The crowd was no longer a crowd. It was a movement. The ghosts had names now. And the world knew them. Security didn't arrest anyone. They didn't know how. Lawsuits would come. So would headlines. But it didn't matter. Because history had already been rewritten. And outside the expo, in a quiet moment of breath, Sasha looked at the old man and the woman. "What now?" The woman smiled. "Now we go build." "Build what?" The old man looked at the horizon. "A future that doesn't forget who dared first." They got into their cars. No press. No fame. Just silence, and a road ahead that was finally theirs again. And as the engines hummed to life, the world realized something it hadn't expected. Legends don't always die. Sometimes, they just wait for the right time to come back.